everyone, Krista Moser here. Today I get to show you my latest pattern. This is 1611 Union Street. Kind of a cityscape, a three-dimensional buildings, blocks pattern. The pieces are pretty big, so it actually goes together really fast. But I'm going to teach you a little bit about the construction, and then we'll talk through fabric choices. You'll notice each of these buildings has a light roof, a medium down the left wall, and a dark down the right wall. And so each one of the colors has three different shades, light, medium, and dark. And that's what's required to get a three-dimensional quilt to really pop. So that's what we've got here. And I'm going to walk you through how to cut these. You'll probably also notice that I used striped fabric in the buildings that have kind of these lines. And my intention was to make it look like the buildings have windows or floors going up. So I'm going to teach you a trick for using striped fabric to also get it to do a three-dimensional thing. So I've got my pattern here. I've got the two stripes that I used. Now, just like I said with the colored fabrics, a light, medium, and a dark, you also need that for your striped fabric. So the roofs are white, so I used this kind of cream off-white color for my roofs, and those are just two triangle cuts cut from strips. And then you need two different stripes. So the left wall is this gray and white stripe, and I cut those stripes. If you can see here, the stripes I've cut into strips with the stripes running down the length of the strip. That's going to be important because we need our stripes to go a certain direction in order to get this three-dimensional look to them. So this strip is 8.5 inches. That's going to be how tall that building is. And then we've got a 4.5 and a 2.5. You've got a lot of different sizes to do because we want these buildings to look like they're layered, like three-dimensionally they're stacked in on top of each other, kind of like you're looking down on a city. So I've got some different size strips for those stripes. Now the opposite stripe, this is going up the right wall. These are black and white stripes. Same stripe, two different colors. So this one is the black and white, and it's going to be the right side. So I've got my light roof, my medium left wall, and my dark right wall. So I think we'll start with the dark right wall here. Like I said, I already cut some roofs. So those will be the triangle cuts here. And they came from a strip, you know, just like this. So for the right wall, let's start with the 4.5 inch strip. Here's my stripe running down the length of the strip. I'll turn it around to the other end so you can kind of see what it looks like to start one of these cuts. And like I said, all these pieces are pretty good size. So we're going to use the large diamond ruler. This is a 60-degree diamond, and it's the large size. So coming from the end here, I just need to start this cut off the end just to get me a 60-degree angle. So I've got my strip laid out. I can run the ruler along the top edge of the strip, just like this. I don't need to cut off much, you know, down here. Just clear the selvage a little bit. And this angle for the right walls goes up and to the right on the striped fabric. Trimmed the end. Now I have a nice 60-degree angle. Now, moving it in 4.5 inches. So this building is going to have a right wall that's 4.5 inches. And so the 4.5 inch diamond line here comes across the bottom and up the left side. And then I'm just going to trim, make sure I get all the way through the fabric, and nip the tip, turn it around, and nip the other tip. So you can probably see that there are buildings in all different sizes. So what happens when we change up the dimensions? So that's a shorter building. This one here, 4.5 inches, going to be the right wall of a 4.5 inch building. And I'll just go ahead and put the roof in there so you can get an idea. How about a 6.5 inch building? Imagine this strip is much longer than it is. This is kind of a scrap piece. But we do the same thing, starting off the end. We line it up along the top edge. This strip is 6.5 inches wide, so that means this building, the right wall, will be 6.5 inches. So now I've got my nice clean 60-degree angle, and now I'm just going to move the ruler in to the 4.5 inch line. And snip the tip. Turn it around. So we've got a couple of right walls here. That's good. And now for the left wall. So like I said, that is a different color. In this case, I did already cut one of my lightest ones. So that's the 2.5 inch size. Because these buildings, they almost never have the same size walls. You'll notice. It's a long wall here, a little bit shorter here, and then the two roofs. A really short wall, a little bit longer, and then the two roof pieces. That's kind of like what I just cut there. So let's look here. We've got a 6.5, maybe we can do a 4.5. Same thing. And this one changes direction. So I almost made the mistake here. So this is a good learning thing. Turn the ruler. Here the ruler goes up and to the left. So the right wall cuts go up and to the right for the striped fabric. The left wall cuts go up and to the left. Just like this. And I just need to scoot it off the end because I don't need to cut off much to get my 60-degree angle. There it is. And now, coming in to the 4.5 inch diamond. And while I'm here, I'll nip these tips. And I have, we could do this one. So this building would be something like this. I've got a couple of roof pieces. Pretty neat. I didn't really put any of the stripe buildings next to each other. I kept them separate, but you get an idea of what those would look like. And then the tallest building is 8.5 inches. So in this case, here's my strip, 8.5 inches. The stripe runs the whole length of the strip. I've already got the angle cut on this one, and so I would just bring this ruler down to where the cut end comes right along the 4.5 inch side, and I'm going to trim up the side and across the tip and turn this piece. I like to nip these tips as I go because it just makes things so much easier when you go to do final assembly later. So maybe I don't want the 4.5 inch wall. Maybe I want a great big 8.5 inch wall. Make a very tall striped building. Isn't that kind of cool? So you've got all kinds of options. They're of course all written in the pattern, so you don't have to do any guesswork and be creative on your own unless you want to, but that's the idea. Building buildings with fabric out of stripes to get this three-dimensional effect. Now these pieces are going to go into 2 different rows, but let's cut some fabric for the other buildings and I'll kind of show you how to lay some of these out together and how those rows start to form. So we'll leave these right here for now. So, like I said, each one of your buildings has 3 different colors, a light, a medium, and a dark. So these were my colors, the purple, the green, the yellow, the coral, and the turquoise. So I've got some cut in the other shades already, so I'm going to work on the turquoise building. And that's the roof here. So we'll set that aside now. The left wall being the lightest one, and the right wall being the darkest one. So we'll start with the right wall here. Open your fabric to a single layer. So this is important. When you're cutting anything like a parallelogram, if you open it to a single layer, you're going to get your right dimension of your piece. If you have your layers doubled over, you end up with 2 pieces and they're mirror image of each other. And the direction of this is important because what we're trying to do is a right wall and a left wall, and that's going to be done in a really specific way. So for your right wall here, now what I'm going to do, turning the ruler this direction so its angle goes up and to the left, and this is different than the way we treated the stripe. So this is all in the pattern, but I'm just pointing that out so you can kind of get an idea. I'm going to come off the end here, just because we need to get the 60-degree angle, again, to trim. Doesn't need to take much off, but. And then, coming in. Now, you get to decide, how big of a building do you want? You know, in this case, that'd be a 4.5 inch wall, and that's a 2.5 inch wall. We've got some longer ones. That one's much longer here. So, I think maybe I'll do a smaller building. And in this case, why not just a 4.5? So the 4.5 inch diamond line comes along the end here. trim the tips. And you would go down this strip cutting different sized buildings according to the pattern. We'll set that there. Now, for the right wall, or the left wall, I just cut the right wall, we're going to do the medium shade. And since I'm kind of thinking a small building would be nice, I'm coming off the end with my first cut. And then I'm going to line it up on the 2.5 inch line. So this makes for like one of these really small buildings. Just like this. Turn it around and snip the other tip. Notice that angle goes up and to the right. So this is the reverse of the stripe for these guys, these colors. It just changes things up. Okay, let me clear some space and give you some idea on how this works. So we have the dark one on the right, the medium one on the left, and then the roof comes together like that. These would be sewn in 2 separate rows. So we're going to be sewing these seams here. And this is another reason that I cut those tips off, because these little flat tips make it absolutely foolproof when you go to join these together. You have the perfect matchup point. You do your 1/4 inch seam, you've got a flat tip on both the start and the stop. So your pieces, once you've sewn this, press the seam open, and then your pieces just line up perfectly. There's no guesswork there. It's just great. Okay, so let me clear a little space, and I'm going to lay out some blocks so you can kind of see how your city will come together. Alright, so if we started with the turquoise building here, and let's just bring down this one here, maybe. That's good. And then I've got some more cut, so I'll set these aside. How about a purple building? The purple building. Underneath the turquoise building, we could go with roof, roof, wall, wall. So far we have 1 row, 2 rows, 3 rows, 4 rows, because these go in different rows, the way they all get added together. And then I'm going to go here and here. That's good. How about a coral building? Let's see what happens. We need another striped building. The coral building can be right here. You can just be creative. Now the pattern is really explicitly laid out with the color diagram here in the back. Where to put your pieces, even the size of piece that goes there, so you can absolutely paint by number with this, or you could be creative and put your buildings wherever you wanted them to be and the sizes that you wanted them to be. But this is kind of a fun layout where I used up all my colors. And you get the idea here that it is just these simple shapes in all your colors to build your rows. And so once you've got all your rows laid out, as your buildings are sort of stacked in on top of each other, then you're going to start sewing them together row by row. And the rows themselves are simple enough. You know, it would be like this one here as the roof, and then the right side, the roof, and then the left side of the next building. And then you would have this row. And sewing all those pieces together like I showed you, matching up your little flat tips, 1/4 inch seams, and then press those open. It makes for a really flat intersection when you go to join these rows to each other. And when you're joining the rows to each other, what you do is you match up the roofs, because the roofs always match. So that gets you going down the length of your strips. You just match up your roofs all the way down and pin in between, because the roofs will always match each other coming all the way down. So here you are in rows just like this. And that's the magic of it. When everything comes together, then all your buildings appear. It's kind of a trick of the eye. It's really, really fun process. So I was working on this And I couldn't really decide on colors. Of course, I love this sherbet color scheme, but I had to make a second size. I had to make a lap size and a wall size. So this pattern comes with both layouts. And then I decided to make it in another colorway as well. So you will see here, let me see if I can show you, a red-orange combination. Let me see if I can. This is the red-orange combination, same exact quilt, just different colors. You can see how vibrant that is and really fun to do. And then the color scheme that's behind me. Now the pattern is written around the color scheme that's behind me, but then we swapped out the orange and the red for the coral and the purple. So makes it pretty easy to do that if that's what you're interested in. You can kind of use it as a guide going forward. And then of course I know you guys ask about kits. If I don't do kits, people ask. So I did do a kit in the one that's behind me. This is the sherbety colorway. We're calling it kind of the coral and the purple. And then I also did kits in the one that is more reds and oranges that's here on the table. So I'll put a link to those in the description box if you want fabric bundles. Like I said, each one light, medium, and dark in your color. So you can absolutely work from your stash. You could do it just from whatever you've got. As long as you have light, medium, and dark, you will get this three-dimensional effect to pop through. And I will also put a link to the pattern. 1611 Union Street, super fun to do. Like I said, the cuts are pretty good size, and there's not a lot of strip piecing or fussy piecing going on here, so it goes together really fast. And another magical way to use striped fabric too. So that's really fun. I think that's just about it. Thanks for watching.